Good evening, everybody, or good morning or good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. This is Matt Sweetwood with Sunday Night Live, where I talk about a variety of topics from business and social media and personal branding and health, all the way to divorce and dating and relationships and all of the things that are important in our lives and the things that lead to having a big life. And this is a term that I like to use frequently, a big life, which is a life worth living. I did something really fun on my Facebook page, which is where you are right now. I take Saturdays off. I used to work when I ran the retail store at Unique Photo. I used to work 7 days a week. And since I'm no longer at Unique Photo, hey Anthony, how you doing? Wait, you got a like for that. Wait, you all get a like for that. I work 7 days a week, and one of the things that I always said was, if I, got out of the store, I would try to take 1 day a week off, and I try to do that on starting Friday night into Saturday. And so I was walking around the city yesterday, and when I do that, I walk around. Part of it's exercise, part of it is to get your head straight, enjoy Manhattan where I am. You can see right behind me right now, it's kind of bright. But as time goes on, you'll see it'll die down a little bit. And I was walking down the street. It was actually on 42nd Street. It was right in front of Grand Central Terminal, actually very, very close to Cipriani's. It was right in front of Cipriani's. And there was a wedding party there. And I took a really funny picture of me sort of looking terrified in front of the bridal party and the groom party. And I made a comment about, basically fear of getting married, and so the topic today, FOMO, which you see in the title, is about the fear of missing out. It's not the fear of getting married. The fear of getting married is something that I think we'll talk about later. Anyway, I made a post yesterday afternoon, last night, and it got all sorts of crazy reaction. I talked about the marriage statistics about how 50% of marriages fail. It's worse for second and third marriages. But we're going to get to that, I think, next week. We'll do that next episode of my live show. But today I want to deal with the topic of fear of missing out. Hey Hillary, how are you? Good to see you. So the fear of missing out has really made the news. There was I think it started with a pretty popular Time magazine article in middle of 2016, was June 2016, where it talked about the fear of missing out, FOMO, F-O-M-O. And it stems from us grabbing our smartphones and our devices on a frequent basis, a habitual basis, to where we're afraid to put it down. And I think a large percentage of us actually have that condition. My device is here. And in fact, you see that my device is actually plugged in, because I figured, why not kind of multitask and charge up my phone while I'm on the show, because then it'll be fully charged when I'm done and I won't miss anything. I won't miss out on anything, with my phone battery going dead. But of course, I have an LG V20, which has replaceable batteries, and I have 2 actual replaceable batteries. And so my phone never actually runs out. But the fear of missing out has actually become societal. How many people out there, watching this, have been on a date or a social interaction or with their family, and the person, instead of paying attention to them, actually was playing with their phone, and instead of playing with their phone, they should have been paying attention to you, but they can't help it. They have to keep grabbing their phone. You hear it buzz, you hear it ring, you hear whatever, you have to grab the phone. Now, the phones today have become, the smartphones have become really smart. They manage a lot of our lives. They make reservations. They give us access to the news. We have Facebook. I could even do this program that I'm doing right now on my mobile device. I choose to do it on my computer because, the quality is a little better, and it's just nicer to sit here in my chair, my relaxed chair, and work it out. So the phones are a necessary evil. We use them to communicate. We use them to send texts. We use them to send emails. So I'm not trying to say that phones are unnecessary. But the first thing to determine whether we think that the use of this device is actually affecting us negatively. And I actually consider this a lot myself. I am a very tech-oriented person. I actually was an early adopter of technology. I had a Palm Treo, if anybody can remember. Actually, I had one of the original Palm Pilots, and then I had a Palm Treo, and that was a communication device. It had this little antenna on the top, and it was a Palm Pilot with a phone and everything. So I really like the functionality, you know, and the what's the right word? The efficiency that the phone gives us. It just becomes a problem when it really crosses the line. Now, I know that I have my phone with me at all times. Right, Hillary, right? You love my phone, right? I watch it charging. And I have it with me all the time too. I don't have to watch it charging because I have 3 batteries. So if my battery goes dead, I just pop in a new battery and put the battery in a charger. So I'm actually really good. That's one of the advantages of having an Android phone. So, you know, it's just a question of whether we're in control of the phone or the phone is in control of us. Now, I wrote an article that actually appeared this last week in Entrepreneur magazine. It's on entrepreneur.com, and it's called the 10, or actually 5 smartphone tips to overcome the fear of missing out. And if you go to Entrepreneur, you go to my website, sweetwood.com, and you click on one of the links, you'll actually find your way there. By the way, just to interrupt, you can find me everywhere at msweetwood, Twitter, everything like that. And I started this article with some really interesting statistics. And it turns out that 46% of Americans, they grab their phone the moment they wake up. Who out there grabs their phone the second they wake up? I know I do. And for millennials, that's like 18 to 30. They grab their phone 6% of the time when they wake up. And then according to Network World, okay, the average person touches their phone. Are you ready for this? The average person, not a techie, the average person touches their phone over 2,600 times a day with a total of 145 minutes. That's about 2 hours and 25 minutes of use. And the heavy users, and I consider myself in that heavy user category, we tap or swipe our phone over 5,400 times per day. We must have strong fingers. And we spend 225 minutes on the phone, which is a little under 4 hours. Can you believe that? So if you're thinking about it, you're spending almost 4 hours a day on the phone, you know, when you consider all the taps and swipes. And the question is whether that's really too much or not. I mean, I think it's a little bit crazy. Hey, Paro, how are you? I always say hi to everybody when they come on, right? So everybody does that, right, Hillary? We're all doing that. We're all using our phone too much. Or is it too much? That's really the question. And one of the things that I think helps you determine whether you're using it too much is whether you feel like when your phone is down, when it's not on you, you're missing something. Now, I'm not talking about even particularly texting. I'm talking about where your phone call, because the phone rings and sometimes you're communicating with people. But is it like you need to scroll through your Facebook feed all the time, or your Twitter feed, whatever you're into, LinkedIn or BB, my company, we have a feed too on our platform? Is it really, or your Instagram feed? And if you notice something about the way they've constructed these feeds, and Instagram just did this recently, is they all use an algorithm so that every time you go back to your feed, it's different. So if you go to your Facebook feed right now and you start to scroll through it, you notice it's linear, particularly on your mobile, right? It's just one story after the other that goes by, which gets you to do what? Continue to swipe through the feed. And then if you close Facebook and if you just come back right away, it's a different set. Okay, if there's nothing new and you don't have a lot of friends, it'll eventually start to recycle. But they do that because it creates an addiction to their site. They sell ad revenue and they make money off of the amount of time and interaction that you have on the site. So they're building these sites to actually be addictive, to actually make you come back to check to see if you are missing something. In fact, there was a 60-minute story for about 3 or 4 months ago, if you look it up, where they had one of the engineers, he left Google, and he ran a company now. Of course, he's a little bit of a self-serving, he has a dog in the race, and they're making he has a company now which monitors how much people are being drawn to the apps, and he maintained that they designed the apps to create that addiction, to get you to go back there. So the question really you have to ask yourself, and this is really a deep question, it's a question that somebody who has an alcohol problem asks themselves, someone who has a gambling problem, someone has an eating problem. I know that of a long time ago, I used to be an emotional eater. I was very overweight in my life at one time, but I have that under control. You have to ask whether you really think it's affecting your life in a negative way. If you feel like you're really missing something when you put your phone down and that's causing you to miss out on life, I mean, just walk into a Starbucks, walk into a coffee shop here in Manhattan, and everybody is down on their phones. When you're in the subway or you're in a place, it's like very few people communicate with you. So I would maintain that the problem is actually pretty widespread, and I really believe it is a problem. Okay, so I think that in order to really overcome this problem, one of the things that you have to do is you have to acknowledge that it could potentially be a problem for you. Because as you know, any problem that you have, until you really acknowledge it and understand that it's actually causing you anxiety, that's going to be pivotal in whether you can really overcome this. And also decide whether you really want to overcome it. I mean, that's really what it's about. Okay? If there's anybody out there really want to say that they feel like they have this, anybody who's watching right now who thinks that they actually have this, so I'll say to any of you, could you go a day, put your phone down and not really be bothered by the fact that you haven't looked at it? I'll bet that there's not too many people out there. Anybody want to admit that they're like that? I'll admit that I'm like that. I'll admit that it's very, very hard for me to go long periods of time without my phone. In fact, yeah, thanks, Hillary. I appreciate that. So I just actually went down and I worked out. I had a workout before the show. And I thought to myself, should I bring my phone down to the workout or should I just leave it up here or whatever? The gym's in my building here. So, and to be honest with you, I couldn't really, I decided to take it with me so I could check it. I made the excuse, I have my show coming up. I have some posts out there which ask people about the topic of the show. Maybe somebody would want to know when the show is and so on, all of those things. So I will tell you that I took it down with me to my workout. Even though I don't have it strapped on me or anything, I just kind of leave it sitting on the side there. So it was very, very hard for me to put it down. I probably should make a point of doing that. So the question is, if you actually have this, what are the steps you should take? If this is actually causing you anxiety, this fear, you feel like you have FOMO, what are the steps? And so the first thing that I would recommend that you do is start to keep a social site diary. This is a pretty proven technique with any kind of thing. If you feel like you're eating too much, you always start to write down what you eat. So a very, very good thing to do at night is the very last action. You put your cell phone down, or you can do it in your cell phone too, which is kind of funny if you think about it, is create a memo and think back to the day when you went on the social sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, BB, LinkedIn, any of those sites. Okay, you were on those sites. Write down the 5 most important things you found out from them. You learned that there was a terrorist attack in Paris, or maybe you didn't learn that there. You learned that there was a bad storm coming in. You learned that your neighbor next to you is really crazy because she keeps posting pictures of her snuggling with cats 12 times a day. So maybe you don't want to write that in the memo because that's not very important, is it? So what I'm going to guess that if you do that for, let's say, 5 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, when you go back and you look through those lists of 5s, in other words, the 5 most important things every day, you're going to discover that that list has very, very, very few items on it that are going to lead you to more success, more money, and more happiness, and really knowing what's going on. Think about it. Think about the kind of things we actually pick up on the social sites. Most of it is gossip, it's just humor, it's those kinds of things. So now if your life is being messed up a little bit, if anxiety is coming into you because you're actually going to these sites and the reason you're going there is to learn that your neighbor is too close to her cats, or that there's gossip about this person or this political post or whatever, or something like that, then maybe you should really think about, like, why am I going there? And if you write these things down and you look at the diary over a long period of time, just do it in like a notepad. Like I use Google Keep. Do it in something like that on your phone, and you're gonna start to say to yourself, like, I've been looking at LinkedIn for a week now. I go there 6 times a day, and Nothing useful came out of LinkedIn the entire week. That will be in your mind the next day when you go in and you start looking. You know when you're going to click on that little LinkedIn tab, you know the likelihood is that you're going to find nothing of value that's going to add success, money, happiness, all of those things to your life. Okay, so if you think about that, it's called retraining your mind. Okay, so that's step one. Do that. You can just do it for a few nights in a row and you're going to quickly catch the hang of that. Anybody ever try to do something like that? Anybody ever try to do something like that with any other part of their life? If you have, you'll know it'll be successful. Okay, the second thing that I would recommend you doing once again, if you feel like you have FOMO and it's causing you anxiety, is to start to schedule when you're going to do social media on your phone. What do I mean by that? So your phone serves two main purposes, actually three for us photographers. One is taking pictures. Okay, I take pictures on my phone and I don't really count that so much as phone use because many times I carry a camera with me. It's always a Panasonic Lumix camera. Have to get the plug-in, of course. As a matter of fact, they just gave me an LX10, which I just love this camera. It's pocketable. So I use my phone and my camera to take pictures. The second thing is it's a communication device. Text, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, and phone. Those during a business day or even in your personal part you need to use. People communicate with you. I don't consider that like the fear of missing out because your phone rings, you pick it up, or it buzzes, you pick it up, and someone's communicating with you. But the kind of stuff that's really addictive, that causes you anxiety, that causes that fear, is the attack on the social sites. And so what I recommend you do is you schedule a set number of times with a calendar alert how many each time you're going to go to the social site. And I would say you should do that 4 times a day. So you schedule, other than the time you wake up in the morning, because everybody looks at their phone when you wake up in the morning, or very close thereafter, and everybody likes to look at it right before you go to bed. So you've got those bookend times. You should schedule 4 times in the middle, like maybe after your morning coffee or snack, right after lunch. And you should just set those in a calendar alert. And if you catch yourself opening your phone for any other reason, stop yourself. In other words, you're going to slip it first. You're just going to pick up your phone, but then say, hey, wait a minute, this is not a scheduled time. So if you restrict your usage of social sites to 4 times a day, it'll be purposeful because you're doing it as a schedule, not just out of this pick up the phone out of habit, and then just keep doing that. And that's one of the ways to really break that habit so that it becomes a scheduled kind of thing, where you're actually doing it at set times a day. Hey, Jan, welcome aboard. So everybody get that? You want to have 6 total times a day when you go to that phone to check for social sites. Once when you wake up, 4 scheduled times during the day, and once when you put the phone down at night. And if you pick up your phone at any other time, stop yourself. At first, I know it's going to be really hard to do that. I know I put my phone in my back pocket when I'm not wearing a jacket, and I put it in my jacket pocket here, and I am always pulling this phone out. So if you just leave it in your pocket, when it vibrates because you have a text or a call, okay, answer it, put it away. But other than that, to post on social media or to look at social media 4 times a day. And even for us influencers, that really should be enough. In other words, I make relevant posts, so there's nothing wrong with when during my scheduled period of time, I look at my Facebook feed, look at my Twitter feed, look at my BB feed, look at my LinkedIn feed, look at my Instagram feed, and then make whatever posts I actually need to make. I can do that 4 times in the middle of the day. I don't need to do it more than that. And even, if you're a social media manager, whatever, you might need to do a little more, but usually you're on a desktop or whatever. So schedule that social media use on your phone, and that's going to really help break your habit. The third thing that you should do is you should limit the amount of time you're on the social site. How many people have gone on, say, hey, I'm just going to look at my Facebook page. Maybe you're even working. Right? You're working, you're doing something important, you're out with family, and all of a sudden that quick look on your Facebook turns into a 10 or 15 or 20-minute time, and all of a sudden you have to leave and you've missed out on what's going on here. I'll bet that almost every person watching this has had that happen to them. And so tip number 3 is to set a timer. So if you're going to be on it 4 times in the middle of the day, why don't you set a 10-minute time limit for each visit? If you're heavy into social media, maybe that'll stretch to 15 minutes. By the time you make a post and stuff like that, it may take a little time. And set a timer on your phone. Everybody should know how to do that. When that phone goes off, close your Facebook, close your apps, close your Twitter, whatever it is, and move on. And put your phone away in the pocket. And so if you sort of look at what I'm asking you to do, I'm asking you to schedule those 6 times a day at a 10-minute time limit a day. That gives you an hour every day. And considering the average person now is using it, like I said before, about 2 hours and 20 minutes, I've cut the time on the phone in half. Now, some may consider that a lot or a little, but it's only cutting the time on the phone in half. And you're still on the phone an hour a day. That's almost 1 full workday in an entire week. So you can imagine if you're on between 10 and 15 minutes each use, you're on 6 times a day. That's a full 7 to 8 hours a week on your phone. And when you think about it in those terms, it's really a lot. So let me recap again. These are really the 3 things that you should do. Number 1, start making a diary of the things that you find. Do this at night, right before you go to bed. Write down the things you saw on your social sites, going through social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Tumblr, BB, whatever, Instagram, and write down those things that really were helpful to you in your life. Not were fun, not that you learned this about this person or that, things that actually will increase your happiness, increase your ability to do your work, make you more productive, make you happier, all of those things. That's what we're really looking for to have a big life, the things that help us fulfill those things. So you make that diary, then schedule in a calendar how many times you're going to use your social media day. I recommend 4 in the middle of the day plus the wake up and the good night ones. And the third part is to limit the amount of time. Be aware of it. And I think a timer is a really good idea because we all know that our time on social media actually just eats up time. You're sitting there, and all of a sudden you think you're just on Facebook for some short amount of time and a half an hour goes by and you realize all you did was look at really dumb stuff and you could have been doing something productive or something like that. So we all know that happens to us. And so setting that timer and following those steps, I think, is going to really help you break that habit and eventually overcome your fear of missing out. Now, of course, there's one very, very important factor. My show, which you're watching on Facebook, should not count towards that limit because this show is going to help you have a big life and is going to contribute. And this is a little bit more like watching TV or watching a movie or a show that actually benefits you. And of course, I don't mean that if you're sitting there and you're watching a movie on YouTube or you're watching a TED Talk or you're something like that, I don't necessarily consider that social usage. The social usage I'm talking about is the kind where you're just scrolling through your feeds and liking and all of those things because that's the thing that actually drives that fear of missing out. And then there's one more thing that I would really like you guys to do. And this is something that I think our society needs a lot more of. And it's something that I know a lot of older people, and I'll classify this really anybody in their 30s or older. This is one of those things where we have become so wrapped in our phones that we don't interact with other people. You know the example of the coffee shop. Just walk into a coffee shop nowadays and everybody is on their phone. Even when you go into a restaurant, glance around the restaurant. There's some restaurants, particularly the fancy ones here in New York, some of them don't let you take your cell phone out. I don't know if that's really okay because, it's your right to do that. But so and I'm actually going to do this. I'm a pretty friendly guy, so I probably do this anyway, but I'm going to make a conscious point. So at once per day, when you're out in public, if you get the urge to pull out your smartphone when it's not one of those designated 4 times a day, what you're going to do is you're going to turn to someone nearby to you. You ready for this? A stranger. And you're going to ask them how their day is going. Or you're going to ask them if they've heard anything they'd like to share with you. Think about that for a second. You're going to turn to them. Might even be a good dating technique, right? It's not really a pickup line. Then if they ask you why you did that, you can tell them that you saw Matt Sweetwood show And he said to do this because you're breaking your habit of using your cell phone and your fear of missing out. So you turn to someone and ask them how their day is going. Or why don't you ask them if they've heard something new they'd like to share? I bet they're going to share something with you can't get on social media, and something you would have missed out if you're on the phone, and you'll do something good for another human being, and it's going to make you feel good that you've interacted with another person. And I promise that if you do that every once in a while, you're going to make a connection with somebody that's going to last. You're going to make a friend, you're going to make a networking connection, and so it's going to be a beneficial thing. So I'm going to say that again. Once per day, if you get that urge, like, oh, I got to grab my phone, like, you know, like it's your baby, you have to grab your phone, put it down, look around, find a person close to you, walk up to them and just say, hey, how's it going? Or if you feel comfortable enough or the situation is right, say, hey, have you heard anything new today that you'd like to share with me? I just need to know. And if you do that, I promise you, your quality of life is going to improve. You're going to feel like you have a bigger life, a life worth living. You're going to make someone else feel good, and you're going to transform yourself from this sort of digital myopic way of looking at our cell phones, almost like a horse with blinders. You know, that's what we've become. We become like horses with blinders, except right at the end of it is our cell phone. So communicate with others. So make your diary. Limit the amount of time you have on the phone, limit the times that you are on the phone, and try to interact more with people, particularly if that habit comes, I gotta look at my phone, I gotta look at my phone, turn to somebody and try to relate to them in, you know, a meaningful way. And I think you're gonna improve your situation. That's right, everybody's laughing at me. Everybody's laughing at me because somehow I turned it into a dating technique. Right? But no, that's not really the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to actually break your own fear of missing out. Because how many times are you really missing out? How many times? I mean, I can't think, like I'm thinking back today. I was on Facebook a bit today. I was actually, you know, looking at my posts. I was preparing. I have 3 talks coming up in the next week. I have a WeWork series where I'm talking about personal branding and helping you to find a job. I'll put a little plug in for that. This week, I have 2 different talks at 2 different WeWorks, one in Wall Street, one I think near Grand Central, 42nd Street, something like that. You can look on my website where I give a talk on how a personal brand and social media can help you get a job. I have a photography meetup next week here in Lower Manhattan, a really cool one. And I'm doing that with Mike Waterhouse. He's the digital correspondent from WABC. We're going to tour around Lower Manhattan. Really cool. I'll have my Lumix camera with me. We're going to meet at Brookfield Place under the palm trees this next Saturday. So, you know, definitely check that out. So I had a lot of reason to be on social media today, but I'm thinking back right now, did I learn anything on social media that's really going to help me? Other than interacting with other humans, absolutely nothing. So my diary, I would struggle to put 5 things in the diary today. So my diary entry is going to be really fast today. I don't have to do it. In any event, there you have it. Realize if you've got that fear of missing out, you have lots of ways to actually overcome that. Some cell phone tips that I gave you, some smartphone tips that I gave you. I hope you enjoyed this show tonight. I think next week we're going to do a little bit on the other topic of marriage and, you know, what's that all about. See me weekly at this time and on Facebook Live. Please connect with me on all of my social media. My website is msweetwood.com. My Twitter is @msweetwood, @BBMSweetwood, LinkedIn msweetwood. Obviously, you're on my Facebook page @msweetwood, and you can connect with me there. For those of you that know me, know that I interact everywhere. This show will be syndicated again across other social channels like YouTube. And we're going to continue to go along and build our audience in preparation of my book, Man Up, which is going to be coming out, it looks like, next February, which is my memoir and my story. So I hope you enjoyed this show. If you have any suggestions or stuff that you'd like to hear about in future shows, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you, Hillary, for joining. And I hope you enjoyed this show. Everybody have a big week, and we'll see you same time, same channel next week. Take care, everybody. Happy Memorial Day.